For further analysis on Mecca Joint Defence Agreement, we are joined by Jason H. Campbell, a senior fellow at the Middle East Institute, live from Washington, D.C. Thank you for joining us. So, Jason, how significant is the Mecca Joint Defence Agreement for the Middle East's evolving security landscape?
Yeah, well, this agreement has long been rumored, and even to incorporate other countries in the broader region. But I think that pulling together and formalizing two of the largest armies in the region in Turkey and Pakistan, and certainly among the wealthiest regions in Saudi Arabia, I think sends a very strong message, I think intended towards Iran, but also to other would-be groups and organizations and countries in the region. Certainly, Israel is not going to be very happy about this. Other state armed groups like the Houthis and some of those we've seen in Iran striking Saudi Arabia, I think will also look at this agreement as something worth considering as they use their options going forward. So yes, I think any test of an agreement like this will ultimately be what actions are taking in support of it, but this absolutely sends a pretty strong message across the region.
And so what message does this trilateral pact send to regional powers, just to add to what you've actually just said,
Sure.
Particularly at a time of heightened tensions in the Gulf?
Yeah, I think to Iran principally, it's stating to them that, look, if their long-term goal here is to act as a regional bully and be able to use some of its asymmetric attacks to disrupt the economies and the overall prosperity of the region, they now are going to have something more to contend. I think that it may be more subtle, but I think a similar message is also being posed to Israel, which has been, pursuing what Prime Minister Netanyahu calls a seven-front war throughout the region. Sometimes, with some overlap in terms of general interests when you think about the Houthis, but in many other cases, much more controversial. And certainly, the strike on Doha a year and a half ago certainly, I think, made some of the other Gulf states and the Arab world and Turkey notice. So I think there's a clear message to any would-be groups or nations that would upset any of these three countries that they're going to have something more formidable to contend with.
With Pakistan's nuclear ability and Turkey's NATO membership and Saudi Arabia's strategic influence, so how does this partnership change the regional balance, do you think?
Yeah, again, I think it's going to ultimately depend on the actions taken under this security cooperation agreement. But you're right. Again, I think this is centered more on deterrence than offense. And I think again the message is strong to Iran and Israel and to any would-be non-state actors that they're not going to be able to operate perhaps with the same level of impunity as they may have experienced over these last couple of years.
See this arrangement as purely a defensive arrangement, or could it evolve, do you think, into a broader strategic alliance with political and military implications?
Well, I think it could, insofar as it pertains to defense procurement and at the sort of the industrial base level. Turkey is already active in Saudi Arabia, Pakistan as well. I think that we'll see whether or not that. I think the hope here is that this remains focused on deterrence and ultimately cooperation throughout the region, and not the formation of one in the multiple other blocks being formed between we've got the UAE and Israel have normalized some of their relations and are sometimes seen as forming closer relations. So I think for stability reasons you want to see general cooperation as opposed to competition, but I think that remains to be seen.
And how do you see US view this pact? And will Washington welcome, do you think, stronger agreement, or is it a shift in regional security dynamics?
So I think principally this is a demonstration of, I think, a U.S. Interest, and that is, nations in the region being willing and able to take on more of a defense role and more primacy in terms of building their own military capabilities. I think there is again some concern here. One, because of Pakistan's close relationship with China in terms of even just military equipment, never mind some of the other diplomatic and economic ties. Obviously, you have the nuclear question that comes in automatically when you incorporate Pakistan, which has already been sort of hanging there with the Saudi-Pakistani bilateral security relationship formed a number of months ago. And then obviously vis-a-vis Israel, the United States is going to have to tread very carefully here in dealing with three regional partners, I would say, in Turkey, Saudi Arabia, and Pakistan, all the various levels of partnership with their key ally being Israel. So it makes for a geopolitical it brings in some geopolitical sensitivities the U.S. will have to contend with, but I think overall it conforms to some broader U.S. objectives.
Many thanks, Jason, for joining us indeed.